everybody, how you doing? Fabian Calvo, founder of the Note House LLC and author of the coming book, The Resourceful Real Estate Investor. So this is real estate principle number 3, a very, very important one, especially based on the news that we heard today about the Federal Reserve. And that is, what effect does the Federal Reserve have on the real estate market? Well, it's pretty big. I mean, you know, the Federal Reserve has basically come out and they realize that in order to keep the market propped up or have some kind of recovery in the housing market, they need to keep interest rates artificially low. That means they purposely keep them suppressed at next to zero. But they also buy up mortgage-backed securities so that they can encourage banks to lend to new buyers and new consumers so they can go out and buy homes. And that's what's happening now. That, and then you also have a lot of the banks keeping inventory purposely off the sidelines off of the market. That way you have little inventory, a lot of liquidity being created, and that is how they create these bubbles. And so they're trying to reinflate the old bubble. Now, as a real estate investor, you know, I remember back in 2006, 2007, the market was on fire, as many people know. And it was on fire because the Fed, in essence, was doing the same thing. Anyone could go get a ninja loan, no income, no job, no assets. And it was no problem, right? You could fog up a mirror, literally, they'd give you a couple $100,000 to go buy a home. Well, we know that that doesn't work because all underwriting guidelines, traditional underwriting guidelines, were thrown out the window. Down payments were thrown out the window. Not too many people back then stopped and asked, why is this happening and who's creating this? Well, it was the Federal Reserve in collusion with a lot of the big banks. So knowing what the Federal Reserve is doing, knowing what the big banks are doing and where their big money is going is extremely important to real estate investors so we can somehow try to understand what are the next couple of years going to look like. Here's 2 things that you should be watching very, very closely, that we at the Note House watch very closely, and that I tell all my students to watch very closely as well. Number 1, follow the big money. Big money, if you look at it like BlackRock, for example, they're pouring billions of dollars into buying residential rental real estate in states like Florida, in the Tampa area, in Atlanta, and in other markets, as are REITs and as are other big hedge funds that are buying non-performing loans, that are buying performing loans, that are buying REO properties. We're doing the same thing. So a lot of big money is going into that type of asset class. These are firms that aren't just real estate firms. They're firms that invest in all different kinds of asset classes, but you're seeing a big concentrated push of big money going into rental real estate. So follow the money. That's a very good thing to do. Knowing that, are you going to compete with these big hedge funds if you're a small investor? No, but what you can do is you can say, okay, well, they might be buying properties that were built between 1990 and present. So you might want to say, okay, well, I'll buy properties built between 1960 and 1990. So you don't necessarily compete with them, but you just kind of try to find the outer areas of where they're investing. You find out those outer areas and then you invest in there following the money. Because eventually, like all bubbles, and what typically happens is the Federal Reserve, which is my second point, but the Federal Reserve will try to reinflate this bubble. You'll have a lot of people now begin to get back into housing, and then eventually prices will fall again. I mean, there's multiple different ways to monetize real estate markets, and long-term appreciation is not the only one. But in this type of market, with the accommodation of the Federal Reserve, keeping the rates low, buying the mortgage-backed securities, and the banks keeping inventory low, I think it's a great opportunity for investors to get into the market and understand, going back to real estate principle number 2, your entry and exit strategy. How long do you want to hold these assets? But I think we have a lot of the big players involved in the market right now understanding that if the real estate market doesn't recover, the overall economy doesn't recover. I believe this is a good opportunity for investors to get into real estate, to make good money. That's what we do every single day at the Note House. If you haven't subscribed to our newsletter yet, just fill out the contact page at thenotehouse.us. Thank you very much for watching this video, and as always, go out, be of service, turn a profit. It's a great opportunity for real estate investors in this climate. I'm Fabian Calvo. Thanks for watching. I'm out.